performer whose body of work includes, but absolutely not limited to, Fraggle Rock, The Dark Crystal, and numerous contributions to the Muppetverse in film and television, which include performing characters, but not limited to, Ernie, Wembley, Beaker, Statler, Bean Bunny, Rizzo the Rat,
Yes!
Kermit the Frog. Please welcome Steve Whitmire!
Yes, sir. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here.
Wow, this is, wasn't expecting a stage. I haven't been in this room yet.
No, it's good, it's good. So, how's your weekend been?
It's been great. Meeting most of the people in this room, I expect. Yeah, it's been nice. It's been very nice. Good people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been, Richmond was our last?
I think you and I were last in Richmond.
Yeah,
yeah.
a few months ago, yeah.
Well, we've been doing this forever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like the first time we did this, I think it was like 2017-ish.
Probably.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic.
Oh my God,
for sure.
9 years.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a heck of a time we've done this, Dan. So
Patty knows more about me than I know.
no, probably not. Well, I did a quick poll, and seems like everybody's kind of like even Stevens. So we'll kind of do the. So let's start off always with the origin story. How did this path begin for you?
Well, I think it actually began when I was about 6 years old. And it was watching Rolf on the Jimmy Dean show. Is anybody else old enough here to remember that? When I was a little kid, and it was one of Jim's earliest television things, and I was just fascinated by these puppets, and I knew it was a puppet even as a kid, but it was I think it was a black and white television, and Rolf had he still has this big black mouth. So on a black and white TV, it looked like it was a big hole, and I was fascinated by it. And I remember thinking, that must be how the people get in there. I had no concept of puppetry. And fast forward to Sesame Street in 1968, and I'd seen the Muppets on variety shows throughout that time, and I was a fan. But back then, obviously, there was no internet, and the only way to be a fan was to wait for, something to like a little blurb in TV Guide magazine. Is the Muppets are going to be on. But then the Muppets are on every day, and I could watch.
If you don't know what a TV guide is,
send
me a self-addressed stamped envelope, care of Mouse on Mouse Expo, and I'll be glad to explain it to you in detail.
Yes.
If you don't know what a self-addressed stamped envelope is, send me an email, and I will explain to you what a self-addressed stamped envelope is. Okay.
And if you don't know what an email is, text it.
Right.
Yeah, but that was the only outlet. If you wanted to be a fan of something, you just had to wait and hope it popped up on television. And then suddenly Sesame Street was on every single day in my area of Atlanta, which is where I grew up, twice a day. So I could watch it once in the morning, once in the afternoon. I started trying to build the puppets, got very interested in the puppetry side of it. I was 10 years old at that point. And that was sort of where it all started. And then fast forward a little further, I was the nerdy puppet guy throughout high school. And then I met Carol Spinney, who was Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch on Sesame Street. Yeah, absolutely. At a local puppetry festival in Atlanta in about 1977, I guess. And no, I wasn't looking for a job. I just wanted to meet somebody who worked for the Muppets. I was 17 or something. And shortly after that, just a few months later, Carol contacted me and said Jim was looking for a couple of new puppeteers. So it sort of went from there. And I was one of those couple of people.
Yeah, and I believe that, was that when you were whisked away to the Muppet Show?
To the Muppet Show in London, yeah. I was this very inexperienced young person who had, not traveled that much. I mean, the farthest I had come was probably to Orlando, from Atlanta. And suddenly I'm whisked away to New York, and I meet Jim, and he tells me that he's either going to put me in the workshop building puppets, or he'll give me a job as a puppeteer. He didn't know which yet. And at that moment, I thought I was going to go to work on Sesame Street. Turns out he was looking for a sort of a new Sesame Street team of performers because he and Frank Oz and Jerry Nelson, the original guys, were getting very busy with things like the Muppet Show. So, and they were going to be less available for Sesame on a regular basis. But as it turned out, he chose to bring me straight to London to work on the Muppet Show, which was very fortunate for me because I was working with his sort of core team of people. Best place for me to learn.
Yeah.
You know.
And of course, that first episode being the Alice Cooper episode.
The Alice Cooper episode. Yeah, it was cool. Suddenly I'm, you know, I always say I was picked up by the scruff of the neck in Atlanta and dropped in London. Didn't know a soul. I mean, I knew Jim and I'd met Frank Oz, but they were busy producing and doing a television show, so it wasn't like we went out to dinner every day. So I knew nobody. And my first closest friends were the people who worked in the workshop, who built the characters, maintained the characters, and something I had an interest in as well, although I didn't really do that with the Muppets. And so I show up, and yeah, I just come from high school with my long hair and playing in rock bands in high school, and we did Alice Cooper's music, and there was Alice Cooper. Very cool thing.
When we first met, he was like, yeah, he made an Alice Cooper
Right.
That wasn't used for the episode, but it was supposed to be. And then he's like, oh, I should, it's like I still got it somewhere. And I was like, well, this is another convention, you're at the other show, we have Alice Cooper as a guest. So one of my favorite memories of being a convention professional is getting him and Alice Cooper reunion and photos of them examining this Muppet.
Yeah, I had this puppet, and Alice was, Jim knew I had made this puppet prior to the Muppets, and I brought it out. We did a photo of me at 19, the puppet, and Alice signed the puppet. And fast forward, it was exactly 40 years later, in 2018, we show up at a show, and there's Alice Cooper, and we restaged Patty actually kind of arranged it for us to restage that photo. So it's me 40 years later, Alice 40 years later, and the same puppet, and he re-signed the puppet.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite things. You know. But that's one of the things I love about Comic-Cons. We worked with so many different celebrities over the years, and some of them you get to know, and some of them you work with once, and that's kind of it. But it's a real full circle. You know, you come back to these shows, and a lot of them will show up, and I get to go say, hey, we worked together back in the 80s, you know. Yeah. That's kind of fun.
And I just, what a plenitude of just like fantastic talent you work, not only within the Muppets community, but again, also with the guest stars and the celebs and stuff like that. And I'm jumping ahead again, but people ask Michael Caine, who's the greatest actor you've ever worked with? And his answer has been, for the past like 20 plus years, Kermit the Frog. And he is not joking.
He was a great scene partner. I saw this interview with him on this show some of you may have seen called Inside the Actor's Studio, just prior to going over to London to shoot Muppet Christmas Carol. And I'm paying attention because I'm going to be working with this consummate actor. And he said, one of what he said was that one of his acting techniques is that you'll notice that when I do a scene and it comes time for my close-up, I never blink during the close-up. So when we got there, one of the first things Kermit said to him is, just so you know, I took your advice, you'll notice that during this scene I will never blink. So we sort of hit it off,
I would absolutely do it. So, we got a lot of fans here. So, what was Fraggle Rock experience like for you?
Well, Fraggle was
Wembley.
Yeah, one of the high points of my career for sure. I always tell people, and it's true, Fraggle is probably my favorite production that I was ever a part of. I guess by then I was about 22 or 23 years old, so very young. I've been with the Muppets for 5 years though, because it started when I was a teenager. And I was just starting to get comfortable with the idea of what it really took to develop a character, and I was still just scratching the surface. But my background was as somebody who knew how to make the puppets move, although I still had a lot to learn. But not in any way an actor at all. I had no acting background, no training at all. So that was all new to me, and it was scary, memorizing lines and thinking through character stuff, and so I had to learn all that. And Fraggle was really my learning time over the 4 or 5 years we did that show. And part of the reason that happened is because Jim was looking to do things like the Dark Crystal Labyrinth. He was moving on to other projects. And so when Fraggle happened, he was there some of the time, but he was also not there a lot of the time. he was traveling, working on new things, and he left Fraggle in the hands of a certain group of producers and writers and his sort of main team of puppeteers to just kind of pull it all together and make it work, without him being there to oversee every day. So you were thrown in the deep end a little bit.
Yeah. I remember I was too old to watch Fraggle Rock. I was on HBO, but again, because I was interested in the Henson thing and everything on else, so it's like, all right, nobody's at home. All right, I'll watch Fraggle Rock and Sticker. Fortunately, HBO had a pretty heavy cycle.
Yeah, they did.
So
they did
too, and and Your Country Wembley had some pretty good moments in that.
Yeah.
And that was the curious thing about the show too. There was continuity. And there was a little bit of evolution with the characters and stuff like that, like Gobo's looking at it. As he gets older, he gets his little Matterhorn hat and stuff like that. And Wembley gets a job.
That's right. That was early on.
A fireman.
Wembley got his job. Yeah.
How do you start a fire?
He was the siren for the volunteer fire department.
Yeah.
But they were always trying to figure out how to start a fire so they could put one out.
Yeah, that was the whole thing about it.
Yeah.
Nothing you could catch on fire.
Exactly. They never had a fire.
And the weirdness too of they were always afraid of the Gorgs. They hated the Gorgs. The Gorgs were kind of inoffensive.
Right.
But and then much later I found out they were meant to be a metaphor for the Soviet Union.
Well, in a way, yeah. Jim's whole sort of mandate for that show was he walked into a room with a core team of people. I wasn't a part of that original team, but creators, and he just said, "I'd like to do a show that could end war." And my understanding is that they thought that was great, but how are we going to do that, And he kind of left it in their hands, and it became Fraggle Rock. And Fraggle was conceived to be a show where you saw all these different levels of characters that really depended on each other in many ways, but they didn't know that. So they were always, having issues and problems, and the Gorgs wanted to kill the Fraggles, and the Fraggles ate the little constructions that those little characters called the Doozers built. But so they all actually had the symbiotic.
They had an ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly.
And when they stopped, the Doozers work so hard, we should stop eating their structures. And then the Doozers we build. It's like it's not the creation, it's the building. Now we have to leave because the Fraggles won't eat our stuff anymore.
It was all overcrowded.
Yeah,
exactly.
It was very sly.
It was.
If you're gonna do like positive social messaging and stuff like that, it was never beaten over the head.
Right.
Which I think was the charm of it.
Although I've been talking to the biggest Fraggle fan in the world, Angie, who's sitting back there, who is has seen every episode 100 times and knows far more about the show than I do. And we were sitting around talking the other day about some of those shows were pretty heavy and dark. There was some really serious stuff going on.
Oh, when they were trapped in the cave.
Yeah.
We're getting tired. You know what that means? We're running out of air.
Yeah. It was some suspenseful stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Oh man, Dark Crystal.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, Dark Crystal sort of happened on the heels of Fraggle Rock. Mm-hmm. So no, that's actually not true at all. We did Dark Crystal before that, and the reason I remember that is because we were shooting Dark Crystal, and it's that was hard work, and these serious kind of scary, heavy characters, and Jim sort of came in with this, what they call the Fraggle Bible, but it was the original document that was going to be used to pitch the show with all these beautiful sketches, these zany characters. And in a way it was kind of a relief because we were all working really hard on the serious film, and we knew that the next thing he wanted to do was this goofy, silly show. So that worked out very well. But Dark Crystal was such a huge project, especially for the time. Everything was practical effects. There was no CG in existence. Big, heavy, giant Skeksis characters that some of us were inside of. And, I always compared the pain to what I've heard some women say about childbirth, that you don't remember how painful it was, but it was actually really painful. It was hard. It was hard, but such a labor of love. And Jim started 5 years before that film, creating the world that it was going to be and developing that world. And I believe that it's probably the only film I know of that's all puppets. There aren't a lot of puppet films that are all puppets, no human characters at all.
Yeah, there's always like one token human or
yeah. And there was a real state-of-the-art kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, that was such a fascinating time in the 80s. It's like Dark Crystal, Tron, And there's a couple of movies that no movie will ever be made like that again.
Right.
You know, with the practical effects and everything else, it's like, yes, we've seen continuation or prequel of Dark Crystal, stuff like that. I didn't watch it. But the whole thing is that, we'll just never see that like again.
Yeah, probably not. It's just too big and expensive. You know, it really is expensive. If you get away with doing any part of that, you never get a second season because it just costs too much to do it. You know, so you can't really do it.
No, so too. I said, you know what? Since we are on around Disney and stuff like that, and Bean Bunny was such an important part of Muppet Vision.
Oh.
Which, rest in peace. Yeah.
Rest in peace, Bean, and the movie. Right? No. Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard. I've heard that there's talk about maybe that they're gonna take Muppet Vision and
finding a way for people to see it
or whatever, or something like that. You know. And again, it deserves to, since that was Jim's last hurrah.
Right, and it's really funny. I don't think I fully realized the impact of that on fans until it closed. You know, for us, it was just our next project. We didn't know Jim was going to die, obviously, and Jim was extremely excited. He was in the process of selling his entire company to Walt Disney, the Walt Disney Company, and it was just the next project. You know, we had 10 other things coming up, right? Yeah. But actually, it was explained to me in a great way by Mike Broder, who said that theater in many ways felt like a Jim's, like a temple to Jim. You know, it was the last thing he worked on. And when you went in there, you were immersed in Jim's spirit and in the Muppet Show and in the whole spirit of all that work. And I guess I really didn't look at it quite that way, so I sure understand. From my point of view, when we did that film and we were making our deals with Disney, they said, most of our attractions only last about 5 years. So, we'll just buy you out and, we'll only be there for 5 years. So from my point of view, it got a great long run, like 10 times its run. But it's funny, I think about it traveling, and I think, well, do you take the whole theater somehow? Do you set it? I don't know how you build the space that really makes it work, you know?
I hope they find a way.
Yeah.
I hope
it'd be great. It'd be great.
And out of curiosity, have you had a chance to pop over and check out the coaster yet?
I have not, and I bet I'm not gonna make it because I'm out of here tonight, like the minute we're done, but another trip.
Well, you're here next week.
Yeah.
Yes, we do that.
Well, that's true. I am back. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. I guess I shouldn't advertise another appearance.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Is it cool?
It's cool. Yeah,
Well, we're doing it.
We'll do that at the end.
We'll talk about that. Okay, I'll let you do it.
We're doing our movie thing.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll set
We're taking out a traveling show we're doing.
Yeah, we do. So, and Jim passed, and there's a lot of uncertainty and stuff like that. And apparently, without not telling you, but he told some people that, and this wasn't in the event of his passing. This was just when he thought he's going to be too busy with these other creative pursuits.
Right.
That you were going to assume control of several of the characters, including Kermit.
Well, yeah, I guess he had said that to his wife Jane and to Frank Oz, a couple people. He was in the process, as I was telling you, of selling his entire company to Disney. And I think he was looking at that as kind of a weight being lifted off his shoulders, because suddenly he's going to have all this infrastructure to take care of the business. He was just going to strictly spend the rest of his days as a creator. And at that point, there was no signature kind of like new creator stepping into Disney. He was going to be it. It became somebody like John Lasseter with Pixar and other people. And then, of course, the Star Wars family and all that. But that was Jim at that moment. And I think he thought he might become just too busy to continue performing, is my understanding. And he had said to Jane, just flippantly, just offhand, he said, I might ask Steve if he wants to do Kermit. I might look into Steve doing that. But he never talked to me about it. I didn't know. So when he suddenly died, Jane said, his wife said, he's essentially chosen his replacement, in a roundabout sort of way. So then it was up to me to, strap on the big boots,
Yeah. I believe you said that you had Kermit in your house. You had him in the closet.
Yeah.
You really were.
I was a little freaked out about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sent me they asked me if I wanted to try it, and we kind of set it up as we'll do it on a trial basis. If it doesn't work out, I understand, we all understand, we won't keep going with it.
And already at that point, you were firmly established, though. You were doing Beaker. You were doing.
I was doing other things.
A lot of the primaries.
Well, not a lot actually. It's interesting, and I think that may be why Jim. Part of the reason why Jim was thinking of me as a potential replacement, because I didn't have a lot of strong characters. I had Bean Bunny, and I had Rizzo, and that was really about it. I wasn't doing Beaker yet. Richard was still around, so I was. He sort of considered me one of his chief people, but I didn't have a lot of characters that had been assigned to me because it's just the course of the way the storylines had gone. It wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
I had Lips, the trumpet player, and the Dr. Teeth Band, a few things like that. But he really was, he kept talking to me about wanting to get more characters for me to do. I remember kind of, joking, saying I never thought he would go to the extent that he went to, But one of the things he and I we had been in discussions on, right in our last discussion ever over dinner, many interesting things in that discussion. But the one that I will share with you is that even though he had mentioned that Kermit thing, he had come to me and said, Frank's directing films now, he's going to be doing other stuff, he's not always available. I want to work with you to develop a new sidekick for Kermit. So that's really what he was looking for me to do, was to be this new character. And he was going back to New York, I was going back home, and next week we're going to start talking about this new character. Didn't quite go that way.
Yeah. But there is no question, though, that you rose to the occasion and you absolutely carried Kermit and Ernie and the legacy characters as well as the other ones, and you absolutely had a wonderful run.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It was a magnificent burden because it was so super important to me that it not become my character in an odd sort of way. I didn't want that to happen. I wanted it to be Jim. And really the only way to do that is not to insert too much of yourself into it. You want, the idea is, and I could have never done it, by the way, if I hadn't worked with Jim for a dozen years. He was right there like you are. And he's doing Kermit, and I'm watching what he's doing, and I'm playing off of him, soaking up his timing and all of his spirit and all that good stuff. So,
what's the on the technical aspect to it? What do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about doing Muppet performing?
Well, the common one, and you guys are fans, so you already know. But people who are more casual viewers of the Muppets presume that we do the voices, but we don't do the puppets. And of course we do both at the same time. Or they presume it's the other way around. I have people come up to the table at a lot of the bigger shows and they'll say, so you do the puppet, who does the voice? It's a polite correction. But they presume it's like animation, that there's somebody else who's doing the voice, right, or somebody else who's doing the puppetry. And we've always, with almost no exceptions, we've always done both live at the same time. And what that really allows for, although that's not the real reason, but what it allows for is for a character like Kermit to go on GMA. And you couldn't really do that terribly effectively if I was puppeteering it and there was a guy over here doing the voice. It'd be all out of sync. You couldn't be spontaneous. And that was very important to the whole origin of the Muppets in general, is that they were very spontaneous characters.
Yeah, very much so. You've had a couple of projects going on. You had Weldon for a while, and
Yes.
he's just kind of like on hold. He's not gone away. He's just kind of in a planning stage or replanning stage.
He's in a suitcase, actually.
Yeah,
really
right.
want to know. Yeah, I did this character a few years ago called Weldon the IT guy, and it was right after I was out of the Muppets, and I just wanted to keep doing something. And it also gave me the opportunity to keep learning, because when I was working with the Muppets, there were always people who did the editing and the writing, and we could be involved in some of the writing, but mostly not. And they built the puppets, and and it's kind of a classic thing with most puppeteers. If you're interested in puppetry, you do everything for a while. you build your puppets and you write your scripts and you figure out what you're gonna do with them and you build your props and your sets. So I kind of started out that way when I was a kid. And this was a thing called Cave-In that I did on YouTube. You guys can find it, it's still out there. We stopped doing it now. But for about 3 years, I did this character called Weldon the IT guy. And IT stood for Internet Troll. And he's actually literally a little troll. He's like this grumpy little creature. You guys should find this, it's cool. If you search on YouTube, Weldon the IT guy, it'll probably pop up. And you don't have to wait through the shows. The shows were live hour-long shows where people essentially called in via the internet and talked to this character. And so I just got to improvise with people for an hour. And those people were actually the real stars of the show because I had a regular group of people calling. I never promoted it, I never marketed it, I never advertised it. I just started once in a while posting things on Instagram that it was happening. And we developed a small but loyal following, and I had a blast doing it. But if you go there, look for a playlist called Production Numbers, because in the middle of each live show, we would spend a week or so shooting like a Muppet style production number, all with one single puppet, gets green screen with these very complicated scenarios and backgrounds, playing off of himself. And it's mostly parodies of modern things. So check it out. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys on it. There, you got it. Somebody found it. Oh, perfect. He's a great little character. I'd love to do more with him at some point, someday. You know.
Well, he'll boomerang around.
He'll come back.
Yeah.
He'll come back. He was too much fun. What I'd really like to do is bring him to Comic-Cons. And in this room, we pull him out and have a conversation. He's a complicated puppet, and he's ever so slightly fragile. So I don't bring him with me when I have to pack suitcases and travel. You know, but I want to figure out a way to do that.
And like I said, at other shows we've done, we had a little set. He had a little set he built for him.
Yeah.
And so we would bring some of those. So Henry Winkler.
Yeah,
Spot.
we did. We had Richard Drive as someone.
Yeah.
But we always had, with the show that I did out of Atlanta, we had, I mean, it was like that whole thing of, I've got a barn, let's do a show.
Yeah.
And then we built our own space to do it in. The tech was just so faulty and bad. You know, so many problems. And actually, it was the same when we did these at GalaxyCon and had a similar issues because we could never count on the internet for streaming at any venue. But if you'll find a couple of those on there too. And it was this, their logo was a pink spacecraft. And so I thought, well, let's put Weldon in that spacecraft as though he's up above the Comic-Con. And we would do the show like with a group of people like you. We'd be up here doing the show. And broadcasting at the same time. It was quite an ambitious endeavor to do at a Comic-Con.
we pulled it off, but like I said, I think it'll boomerang back.
Yeah.
So cool. I think I covered all the basics of it too. So I'm gonna come out there and see who's got some questions for our guests. Bam!
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go you and then all the way back there. All right. Hey, what you got?
So, Muppet Treasure Island has been one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Like, probably since I was 7. Do you have a favorite memory from being on the set and making that movie?
I have a handful of really good memories, but most of it probably for me centers around working with Tim Curry, which was incredibly important and special. I was a massive Rocky Horror fan from the time I was about 16, and suddenly I got to work with him, and turned out that upstairs we all had our dressing rooms, and his was next to mine, and you sit around for hours waiting for them to light and do all the tech before you go down and shoot the scenes. So he'd wander over to my dressing room, and I'd wander over to his, and we got to know each other reasonably well, as you would on a set like that, just talk about life in general. And let me put it this way, it got to the point where I could have a conversation with him without fanboying out. You know what I mean? We got to know each other at that level.
That's wonderful.
And I'm hoping to, I'm excited about this. We're doing a show in San Jose in a few weeks, and I'm going through LA, and I think if he's up to it, we're gonna hang out for a day. I think we haven't caught up maybe since the film. I mean, it's been a long time. So I'd love to see him, So that would be good.
And all the way back here. No. This is like 5 steps. Hey, what's your name?
Tyler, how are you?
Hello, Tyler.
Huge fan.
Thank you.
First off, Labyrinth is probably, I think, the best Jim Henson's ever made. Question for you, like, when you're doing the Muppets, do you add a lot of ad-libs, or do other performers add ad-libs? Do you remember any ad-libs you added to anything from Fraggle Rock or Labyrinth or even Kermit himself?
Well, there were all sorts of little things, the character stuff. you know, Wembley did this thing where he would, if you remember Fraggle Rock, he'd be walking around and he'd be going, he'd make that little noise. That happened because we were always shooting in Toronto. It was always the winter time. My throat was always hurting. And before every single scene, when they'd say, okay, stand by, we're gonna shoot, they'd be counting down, I'd be going, clearing my throat. And it became, Wembley started doing it. Because Wembley's already on camera, so they're counting down, 3, 2, 1, action. And I'm going, and it turned out that I started doing it rhythmically. And it became his thing that he did. So they started writing it into shows. I mean, that was just something that got added to his character. There's a scene in Fraggle where Boober kisses Wembley on the nose. And then Rizzo sort of returned that kiss in Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yes.
And both of those was just Dave and I goofing around. That wasn't written in the script, you know. But little stuff like that. And really, you know, we get the script and we were always able to throw things in as long as we stuck with the general story. I mean, there are better ones than that. But like there's a scene in Muppets from Space. I don't know which one they chose, I've forgotten. But a lot of the characters are like playing cards or something at a certain point. You'll see it if you see the film again. And Rizzo started every scene by saying something to Pepe and calling him a name. And I just went through everything I could think of. I'd call him Prawn Cracker, and I'd call him, you know, something about, you know, the vein in his back. And so we just kept going on and on and on to the point where Brian was there and he said, okay, I really need for you to choose one, you know. So yeah, we were always being silly. It's what, you know, keeps the spirit up while we're shooting.
Thank you.
Good one. And hey, what's your name?
Candace,
what you got?
in Bean Buddy voice, can you do a line from the show that was at Hollywood Studios that's no
Wow.
longer there?
Yeah, if I could remember the
That
lines.
is a request, and I
Yeah.
have said we can't really ask for that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
No, it's
yeah.
okay.
Patty is protecting me because he knows what kind of shape my throat is in, and I'm going to do it. And you're going to say that sounds nothing like Bean Buddy.
Plus, again, we're like really close to Disney property, and
You never know,
They're
you
kind
never
of
know.
weird about he can talk about the characters. He's not allowed to do the characters.
Yeah, not really, not really. I mean, I do
Yeah.
sometimes, but I'm not really supposed to. I kind of try to be respectful. You know, yeah.
What was your favorite character to do of all that you did?
Well, my favorite character ever was Rizzo, always. You know, he was always my character. I kind of came up with him and watched him grow over the years. So, okay, you know what? I'm going to cheat. How you guys doing it? I'm going to do Rizzo for you. So technically, I can do Rizzo because that ain't Rizzo no more.
That's right. That's right.
I'm sticking to that. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, what you got, Captain?
Pretty good. Well, good afternoon. My question is, in all the shows you have played with kids, how is the interaction between the kids to keep the magic for them to look at the character and not
Yeah.
the person behind the character?
Well, you know, it's a funny thing. My best story about that really is we were shooting, Kermit was on Hollywood Squares a few times, if you remember that game show. And Henry Winkler was the producer and all these, it was wonderful, wonderful days. You'd go in, they'd bring you in great food and you'd play all day. And I'm backstage during a lunch, and we all had our little rooms, you know, and these guests came in. We didn't, you know, the audience didn't come back, but they came in and they said, we have our young daughter here, she's like 6, and we'd like to bring her in, but we're afraid, we'd love for her to meet Kermit, but we're afraid it'll ruin the magic for her if you do this. And I said, no, you know, usually kids, they relate it to when they play with their toys at home. It's no big deal. So they bring the little girl in, and she's one of those kids who kind of stands and has her hands behind her back and just looks out from under her eyebrow bit. And she's standing there, and Kermit's talking to her, and Kermit would say, and the parents are behind, and Kermit would say something, and she would nod her head yes, and she had that apprehensive look on her face. And she'd say no and yes. She never spoke a word. And I'm sitting there with Kermit, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they were right. I've ruined her for the rest of her life. And finally, you know, Kermit says goodbye, and she kind of turns and walks out with the parents. About 5 minutes later, the mom comes running back in, and she said, I have to tell you this. The minute we got out of the room, the minute we got out the door, the little girl said, Mom, I told you he was real. So that's it. She was too shy to talk to him, but she never believed for a moment that he was real. You know?
Nice. Is there maybe an expectation that if you do the character in front of somebody, that it's almost like a ventriloquist, that you're not supposed to move your lips?
Once in a while, yeah, and we just do it anyway. But yeah, I have friends who are great ventriloquists, and I appreciate it so much, but I was never able to do it well.
Yeah.
All
right, I know you got one. What you got?
Mr. Willoughby's Christmas Tree.
Yeah.
How much fun was that to work on with Leslie Nielsen and?
Well, I got to tell you, my part of that show was simply Kermit in the beginning. I did not work on the whole show. We were in the middle of shooting something else, and I would have loved to have worked on it. I think Robert Downey Jr. was in it, right? Yeah. Loved to have done it, but I only shot Kermit's little piece, so I can't really answer. But I can't believe it wasn't a blast. It must have been so much fun with Leslie Nielsen there.
We wish they'd re-show it on TV every year.
Yeah.
You got it on YouTube though, so.
Yeah.
YouTube, the great equalizer.
Yes.
That's how I discovered Wilkins and Watkins.
Yeah, exactly. You see everything.
And if you're not familiar with that, man, very, very early part of Jim Henson's career when he was doing these local commercials. And he did ones for Wilkins Coffee. He had these two characters, Wilkins and Watkins. And it's the most violent Muppet stuff you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah.
And,
It's very cartoon.
So if anybody ever asks you, did you drink your Wilkins coffee? Say, yes, I did. I drank it all. It's so good. Please don't kill me.
Yeah, exactly.
And when and it's like, it's almost 20 minutes worth of them, of 15-second jobbies.
Oh, it's worth looking at.
Yeah, it's worth a look-see. So, like, yeah. Hey, what's your name?
Ryan.
What you got?
Glad to meet you earlier, but
Yeah.
was recording like the voices for the characters in like video games and live shows and stuff, was that any different than like performing them?
Well, yeah, it kind of was because we don't have the puppets there, so you're imagining it all in your head. I mean, you're seeing it as the characters do it anyway, and it's doing strict voiceovers was never my favorite thing to do. I don't get a great deal of fun out of standing in front of a microphone and doing voices, and it's not something I think I'm very good at. The voices of the characters always came secondary to me, to the actual puppetry. It's just a part of it. But it's still very similar because you're trying to be in character. The best example of that, the most fun example of that, was when we did a thing called the Muppet Beach Party album.
Oh.
And it's all of us in the room together. So we're just playing off of each other like we would if we had the puppets on, and we got the headphones on so we can hear everybody. But most of that album, all of the talk between the songs, we were just improvising and ad-libbing. We just made it up as we went along, and that's why I love it so much. And you can kind of tell, it just sounds so natural,
Good one, yeah. Just got, let's see, a couple hands up here. Hey, young lady, what you got?
Hi there.
I'll get
Kind of a two-parter.
You're allowed one question, so.
Okay,
Here's what
I'll do my personal.
You're
Say 'em all
gonna
at
do
the same
one,
time.
and then I'll get hers, and I'll come back to you. I gotta be fair.
Okay. I'm a huge parrot head, Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
You did a couple of things with Jimmy
I
Buffett.
did.
Do you recall Rizzo the Rat, and then as Kermit with amphibian?
Yeah, Caribbean
amphibian.
Yeah.
Do you recall those times?
Yeah.
And what is your favorite? What's
Well,
the impact
it's
on
funny,
that?
I have less memory of the Rizzo bit that we did, and a lot
It's a
more
little
memory
earlier.
of Caribbean Amphibian because we were singing a song together. He's just the nicest man on the planet, and his whole band was there, and in between takes and in the dressing room, you're sitting around just talking about life. That's the kind of person he was,
Sweet.
Loved it. I mean, it was just a great opportunity to sing with him. It's always, there's nothing better, and of course that was not his song originally, but it suited him so well. The most fun thing ever for me is whether it's a rock star or an opera singer or whoever it might be, when you get those opportunities to work next to a famous, well-known singer singing their big hit is the most fun ever. because you've heard it a million times and you know the song, and there they are. I'm down here, they're up there. But, you know, I mean, Lady Gaga and all these people we worked with, you know, and they're belting it out, and my God, and you know, it's just amazing, you know, the energy you feel from that person when they're singing their song, you know, it's so much fun.
Thank you, that took care of the other part.
Oh, good, okay, perfect.
Sounds good. Okay, what you got?
Hi, my name is Amanda.
Hi, Amanda.
Thank you for Muppets Christmas Carol. Like one of my favorite times of year. I bang those songs out in the car all the time. Even when it's not Christmas, I have Scrooge on my playlist all year round. Because I say that's not a Christmas song. You did sing it in the
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of Christmas.
Yes.
2013 Saturday Night Live.
Yes.
I Wish It Was Christmas Today. Were you part of that performance, or was that
Yeah.
somebody? You were? Okay, good.
Yeah.
What motivated you to make Kermit so
Go
manic
insane?
during that? Because it's so funny and it's one of my favorite things in the world.
And it's way over the top.
Exactly.
You know, it's uncharacteristic of what I might normally do because I'm such an advocate of keeping the characters very kind of realistic, organic, biological things, and not just throw them around all over the place.
Yes.
But it seemed like the time to do it.
Yes.
And otherwise, it seemed like it was going to be, not that this, I mean, it was a brilliant little song, but I thought this is going to be pretty boring with the Muppets because everybody else was playing it so straight. And I thought Kermit's just standing there, let's go crazy.
Yeah, and even Gonzo starts playing along.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
Gonzo
this
got
is
into
so
it.
manic, and it's one of my favorite things, so thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Yeah, and they had attached that hat on so I could twirl the hat.
And then you're like, break it down.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly,
yes.
exactly.
Thank you.
Well, you know, once in a while you just do puppet stuff, you know.
You just feel it. You're
Yeah.
feeling it. I love it.
It's always important to me, by the way, that one really important thing for me is that you rarely see the puppets from the waist down, but we always try to play them as though there's ground there, as though they're standing on solid ground. So the movement is tempered to make you think they're standing on something,
Right.
even though there's nothing down there. And that was my hope during that, is that it still looked like he was on a surface as he danced. He wasn't just being thrown around. It was calculated. I love that bit. It's a great
It was
little thing.
perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And this was SNL?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, good.
Saturday Night Live
Yeah.
2013. It was like Horatio Sands.
Yes, playing the
Tracy,
guitar.
Chris McTan, Tracy
Yeah.
Morgan, and Jimmy Kimmel, and they would just do the same song every year.
Yes.
Looked under my radar, but it's fascinating when you consider the history of the Muppets and SNL.
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
Especially, you know, spacious, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, Michael O'Donoghue, one of the funniest comedy writers of all time, but he had a weird hate on for,
Yeah.
I don't work with felt, you know.
Right.
You know, and that SNL movie they did, Ivan Sun directed, is not far from the truth about how
Right.
Jim and the guys were kind of mistreated
Yeah,
by that
yeah.
SNL. But if they hadn't done that, they wouldn't have met Avery Brooks,
Right.
and who was a head writer at SNL, and he was on Good Time, and he became the head writer of the Muppets. Said, let's just go do our own thing and meet Lou Grade, and yeah.
Right.
So
Exactly.
necessary dominoes. Oh yes, but yeah. What you got?
Hi, my name is Margie.
Hi.
Kermit was like my first love. So I had a little Kermit puppet that I
nice.
slept with when I
Oh,
was
wow.
young. I'm curious, as you know, when Kermit kind of gets that exasperated, like, you know, how difficult is that to execute?
Well, Kermit is probably the simplest puppet ever. And it's one of Jim's earliest puppets that he constructed himself. And it's really just a piece of fabric draped over your hand. There's no stuffing in his head. If you take your hand out of Kermit, his head just flops, it caves in. And it's all about what you're doing with your hand on the inside. A lot of the puppets we do like this, you know, you're talking like this. And the important thing with puppets is, I'm sorry, I'm not really talking to the mic. You don't do that, you do that. And the reason you do that is so the eyes stay basically level as they speak, so they're not doing, because people don't do that. Well, some people do, but most people don't. But with Kermit, my hand was always like this. And his nose goes beyond the hand, so it's kind of like this piece of fabric draped over your knuckle. So you push up and the top of his head goes up. So all that movement is translated to the outside. And the exasperated thing, the sheesh, is kind of taking that and stretching the mouth, stretching the face to either side. So it's a lot of movement of your fingers to get what Kermit can do. And yet it can be unendingly subtle. You can get the smallest stuff out of that face, you know, and the smallest emotions. And then you can do something really huge. you know. And back in the early days of Sesame Street, you'll see Jim doing these extreme things with that face. But you'll notice over the course of time, it evolved into something that was much more like this living, breathing character that was usually less extreme, you know.
Yeah, because you get like that whole like.
Yeah.
Okay, we have time for a few more, so I'll take that gentleman. Because you're wearing the shirt, I'll do the last one. That makes sense. You're in the front row. Sorry. Go back here to this fella. Hey, what's your name?
Sam.
What you got?
My question is, because as a young teenager, I did some puppetry, but I was wondering about, you guys are up here.
Right.
Holding it up here.
Right.
So did they have some kind of contraption to help you hold your arm up, or was it just pure muscle?
No, but if you invent one, people would use it. No, we didn't. And anything that would support your arm would also limit your movement. And most of I was talking about the idea that they're on solid ground.
Right.
Most of the movement, I mean, they can walk. You can make them walk. And by the way, you might notice that back in the Sesame Street days, the Muppets walked like this. And as time went by, as we did Dark Crystal, it translated into a more kind of realistic, what it looks like when a person really walks from the waist up. So it went from this big movement like this when they walk to more like this. Very tiny, very small, because people don't move very much when they walk from the waist up, you know. And so you couldn't do those things if you had some kind of a contraption holding your arm up. I find that the muscle that does the work is the shoulder. I rarely teach any kind of puppetry, but when I have, it's been to tell people that this is the muscle that's doing all the work. Up here is floppy for all most intents and purposes. A lot of times puppeteers, when they first start, I'll find that they're incredibly rigid in the upper part of their arm, and then it starts to hurt. And this is solid, and it's very hard for them to move. When in actual fact, everything up there is very loose and fluid. It's all very easily moving, and all the support is in your shoulder. And we also always tried to work the heart. This is really a killer. That's not as hard because you're locked. You're not. It's supported just by the fact that it's straight up and down. So, it can hurt, and if it's a heavy puppet, it can really hurt. But you just keep going.
Eventually, it builds up.
Yeah.
All right, so we got one over here. Let me walk over to her.
There you go. Well, okay, most people don't walk that way.
Hey, what's your name?
My name is Courtney. Hello.
Yes.
I had a question. You spoke about, puppeteering, speaking at the same time, but I was curious when roles intersect, if let's say Kermit and Rizzo are sharing the screen, or for Frank Oz, if Piggy and Fozzie were sharing the same screen. What were the dynamics of that? I imagine somebody else was puppeteering. Did you get to choose who you wanted to portray?
We would pick who was going to stand in for us.
Yeah.
We would find another puppeteer who could do the character, and then we would dub the voice afterwards. Okay. My first job with the Muppets, when I was 19, when I first showed up, I was kind of immediately put into doing that very thing. If Frank was doing Fozzie and Piggy, they were in the same scene, Frank would most often do Piggy because her movements were a little more specialized, and I would oftentimes find myself in Fozzie. A lot of the Muppet movie, I was in Fozzie as a puppet. And it was the best possible training I could have ever had because, for whatever reason, it hit me that my goal needed to be that when the actual performer got back in their character, it was a seamless transition. I wanted for Jerry Nelson's character to be done exactly like Jerry Nelson. Jerry had a very specific style. Jim had a very specific style. Frank, they all did. So I studied everybody's way of moving the characters. And then that sort of all went into what I guess would be my style, But yeah, it's very important to me that there's not a funny jump, and over here it doesn't look like what Frank would have done. I tried to do what Frank would have done, Yeah. Yep. stuff.
Today, anything coming up on the horizon?
Yeah, actually, there's a fun thing. I'm an Atlanta-based person. I've been there my whole life. And I've been working with a group called Mirth and Mischief. We did a show last year at a castle in North Georgia. It's huge, immersive events where you come in, you can cosplay. In fact, we encourage it. This was a fantasy event at a castle where we had a big dragon that I oversaw the building of by an incredible puppet builder called B.J. Geyer, who's here in Orlando. And we had a guy named Twigglenog, who's this little gnome who lived in a tree, and you could have conversations with him and various things. So this year, we're doing a new show called, it's spelled like joie, like French, but we're pronouncing it joy, at a place called Callanwald Fine Arts Center, which is the ancestral home of the heirs of the Coca-Cola family. So it's a huge, beautiful mansion that's now Fine Arts Center. And the best thing to do is to search online Mirth and Mischief, and it's Joie is the name of the show, and you'll start to see things showing up about it. And I'm doing a Twigglenog, this character, there's the gnome is going to be there, and we're doing a new character, which I'll just let you look at. He's going to be a professor who makes candy in a confectionery. And then I didn't perform at the last one. I'm going to actually do the professor this year, along with 2 other puppeteers. It takes 3 of us to do it. Nice. So I'm very excited about that. It's fun. A lot of creative freedom. Kelly Nelson, who's the creator of this whole thing, is terrific. And all of you, if you're Orlando people, you're close enough to come to Atlanta and see this, and you can visit the Center for Puppetry Arts while you're there.
Yes.
So, yeah, in December.
Yeah. And Noel's gonna be, I think he's gonna be inducted. Yeah.
He's doing. I
That's something going on.
Maybe next year he's doing. I think it's next year, early next year.
Yeah. Yeah. He did say 27.
Yeah.
So yeah, check it out if you're up in that area as well.
Yeah.
And if anybody is local and was interested and was planning on coming to Animate, which will be next week, a subsidiary of GalaxyCon, Steve and I, for the past year or so, we've been doing live commentary screenings of Muppet films. And we're going to be doing one, I assume I'll be assigned to it, you know.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. But the whole thing is, we're going to be doing Muppet Treasure Island, and we're going to be screening